All right, a grand rising, everyone. This is Ron. It is Saturday, March the 14th, 2026, a little after 10 a.m. So let's get started, see if we have questions. Uh, the last time we spoke last Monday evening, we were looking at shadow work. We've been talking about shadow work for the last few sessions now at least. And what we're looking at is ourselves and who we are and what it means or how important it is for you to identify and see those things in you that need to be addressed or dealt with in order that you can, uh, being a Kabbalah, recognize who you are and have a better understanding of the wisdom that you have and responsibility that this is. And also talked about judgments of others. So on last Monday, we talked about Matthew 7 and what that was my attempt to try to find some scripture to look at shadow work. Whereas we have a tendency to look at other people more harshly than we do ourselves. And I think Audrey or George, I think it was Audrey that talked about other people are our mirrors. So this was a sort of a attempt to look at that and even to broaden it out and say the things that we see going on in our societies uh, is an image of maybe what things in us that we need to deal with ourselves. So that's where we were last Monday, and I'm sure it was more than that that I'm not remembering now, but are there any questions about that or any other question that you may have thought of? Do you have any thoughts or questions about anything else that may have happened in the course of this week?
Hey, Ron.
Yes.
This is Sheldon.
Hey, Sheldon.
Before we, uh, hello, uh, greetings to the new day. Uh, before we move on, I was on last session. We were talking about Matthew, was it 7? Matthew 5. Good, Matthew 7. Sorry,
Yes, sir.
1 through 5. But I couldn't actually speak. And
Okay.
one thing that came to me, uh, the church uh, in the nature of the church and how it is, and has had a huge effect on us as well, is extremely judgmental. Um, the church, this is generally speaking, not only does it judge others, and we talk to judge others, but we also more so put them in boxes in terms of course, those being worthy and those who are just sinners. And as if as as long as someone is a sinner, in some sense they are tarnished and less than. And then, of course, uh, as a member as a church member or part of the church, and again, this is generally speaking, the church attempts to bring people in the fold and to come away from sin. However, that option is a lot of times if that person does not decide to actually come at that particular point, they are then shunned for not coming over. And I'm actually going somewhere here with a bigger picture here. So with
Okay.
all of that, a lot of us have been in some sense, when we talk about the shadow work and shedding things, have already been conditioned to be extremely judgmental to others. We were more so taught subconsciously without knowing it to judge everyone with that beam in our own eyes ourselves. To go further, um, to try to explain the part about ye who judges is judged themselves, and it is us who then are judging ourselves because we are also setting up parameters or a way to actually live our lives that we ourselves have to uphold. I think Pastor Richard used and that in itself can essentially be a sentencing. I think Pastor Richard used quite a few years ago that idea, and so I want to tease it through right quick. Just tease through it right quick. Let's say, for example, a woman who's extremely prideful that she has never actually, slept with anyone. She wears that with a badge of honor as something to make her special and above and better than everyone else. She looks at herself as being holier than thou. While that is the case, by her judging other people, she has set up the conditions for later on in life when she wants to get married or have a family or whatever, that particular thing is bad. And in that way, she's actually judged herself by judging others, and she set up those conditions of judgment for her future, in a sense. So now she's not able to naturally go on and have a family and those things, or at least embrace it to its fullness and from a spiritual standpoint, because she's already demonized this particular thing in her head and put it in this box that this particular thing is horrible. So now she's back to judging herself if she participates in any of these things. So when we hold a harbor discontent for someone for things today of done and judging and not understanding, and not saying that everyone, of course, is going to experience that. I certainly can't necessarily experience that in the same way in terms of like having a child, but these things are all tied in terms of when you talk about shadow work, you talk about judgment, you talk about all of us being part of the collective and the whole. We're always always simultaneously the object and the subject. We cannot be separated because we're all one. I don't know if there are any questions, but that's pretty much what I wanted to say in my thoughts at the time. I'm finished.
Thank you, sir. Very well said. Any thoughts or questions about what Sheldon said, y'all?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say this, but in addition to what Sheldon said, um, when that happens, one thing that usually puts that young lady in a position where she judges herself so deeply until it can destroy her. And that is a young lady who wears it as a badge. And then the month or two before she gets married, she does it for the first time and end up getting pregnant and having to walk down the aisle pregnant, even though she has judged everybody else for that. That puts her in a position um, where she is deeply judged by herself and also beating herself up because she hopes no one else knows she's pregnant.
Yeah.
I've had some of those kinds of experiences. So, what I want to do, in addition to Sheldon, if there are no questions about it, I want to talk about the other side of shadow work. Uh, Sheldon, are you finished?
Yes, sir. I'm finished.
Huh?
Yes, sir. I'm finished.
Okay. Um, are there any questions about what Ron, you guys talked about on Monday, or what Sheldon just mentioned? Because I want to talk about what shadow, what to avoid doing shadow work.
I think, Pastor, one of the important things that Sheldon said was, you know, by the church, we're taught to be judgmental. That's kind of That's an important thing as you try to shed these images of religion and all these things you're taught. Uh, yeah,
I think the other important thing is that I kind of latched on to while Sheldon was talking is that when we judge others, we're basically judging ourselves.
in ourselves. Yeah,
And I think that's a really important idea to consider.
And that I agree. And that's one of the things that I wanted to look at also, because when we're doing shadow work, 9 times out of 10, what we are dealing with entails judgment, either by us or by others, being judged or judging. And when you judge, you're doing comparison, whether you know it or not. And you're comparing someone else or their actions to you. So I believe that it's impossible to judge someone without having judged you. You're judging them because you're hiding something that is similar, or you're judging them because you think you're better. Anytime that we talk about people in the world versus people who saved, as Sheldon was talking about, we are judging them. You need to be saved. That's a judgment. That's a judgmental decision. I was speaking with someone during the course of the week, and well, matter of fact, someone's more than one person. And what happened is this person said that she had told somebody they need to be saved, and I said, "What made you think that?" They need Jesus in their life. I said, suppose they already have Jesus in their life. Suppose everybody does. Well, they can't be no sinner and have Jesus in their life. I said, how do they get Jesus in their life? No, silence. I said, let me tell you something. The church has always said that you got to get Jesus in your life. But at the end of the day, the church also says that you don't have Jesus or God in your life if you're a sinner, and the church judges what a sinner is. And in addition to that, how can you be saved, as you put it, without having a conversation with Jesus or God or whomever? Well, if you ain't saved, you can't hear God. And I'm like, so if you're a sinner and you can't hear God, then who tells you to get saved? How do you change your life? And after that, the conversation ended. Why? Because there were no answers to that. So the whole idea of salvation is you making a judgment on someone. The whole concept of salvation is you telling someone they're not enough. And therein lies a need, eventually a need for shadow work, if you accept that. However, as Ron stated earlier, we have been talking about shadow work for a while. There is something after shadow work, and I want to talk about that. Why? Because we have to learn to be in the now. We are in a space of time where everything is about to change. And I sent something to the teachers, and we talked about some things in that regard. I'm sorry, we communicated through text in that regard. So I want to complete shadow work so we can talk about where we are in terms of living in the now. What does that look like? That's really what I want to talk about also. What does that look like? We have made statements, heard statements made about our shadow work, how difficult it is. And we've also heard over and over again about doing the same work over and over again. Well, shadow work does not do any good if you don't deal with whatever the issue or whatever is besetting you. If you don't deal with that demon that you've been wrestling with all your life, then shadow work does no good. Shadow work cannot be used as an excuse, because if you are who you say you are, if you really believe that, then there is no reason for you not to be able to move beyond whatever is plaguing you and been plaguing you for most of your life, if not all of it. You have a choice. You can be pitiful or you can be powerful. The choice is yours. You can walk around with every time something comes up, you can have a pity party, or you can rise above it and be powerful. You have to make that decision, but you cannot keep wallowing in whatever you're doing by saying, I'm doing shadow work. At some point, it has to be dealt with. Now, do I feel like everything you're dealing with is going to vanish? It can, if you work at it. And even if it doesn't, you are still working on it. And you can't work on it for the rest of your life, because if you do, then what's the point in doing the shadow work? It can be beneficial or detrimental. As someone has said, it can be your shadow work can be your wilderness or it can be your giant. You can die in the wilderness doing shadow work, or you can go into the mindset of promise, because you've dealt with or is effectively dealing with the shadow work. And the land of promise is a shift in vibrations so that you can live in the now. And we'll get deeper into that later on. If you don't deal with it, if that's your chain, if that's what you remain enslaved to, your vibration will not change. You will remain at a low vibration because you've chosen to use shadow work as an excuse. It becomes real dangerous when it becomes a pity party. It becomes real dangerous. Dangerous to the extent that you lose sight of everything, and shadow work becomes your excuse for everything, as opposed to becoming your deliverer from those things that have been plaguing you. Are there any questions or comments?
How do you know when it's becoming your excuse then?
When you're always talking about it, When it always comes up in your conversation, and you don't have to say I'm doing shadow work, but you always talk about the same thing, that that's plaguing you. People don't like me, or every time I walk in the midst of this group, they say this about me, or they don't treat me right. In my case, I told you guys that my issue was rejection. And to give you an example of what I'm saying, rejection deals with a fear of being disliked, or being judged, or being denied acceptance by a group, or by people around you. It also Rejection is also a form of avoiding to express what you need, or what you or deny your emotions, how you feel about things, because you want to be liked. And and this has been a big thing, shrinking, making yourself smaller, making yourself invisible to avoid being too much. Um, that in that case, you begin to hide your authenticity. You begin to do that because you want to feel safe, which means that you're rejecting yourself. And the biggest thing with me has been shrinking myself so that I can be accepted. And I have done that so many times, teaching. Even during the course of me battling this, I have done it so many times. And the way I have done it with us is in avoidance of admitting who I am in terms of covering, and who we are in terms of teachers, because I was afraid that people were going to feel like I was diminishing them, or I was afraid that if I say certain things, people are going to say to me, "You think you know everything." Well, and that's been one of the issues with me. Therefore, I hold things back, or I present them in a way that I'm dumbing myself down, or denying myself the reality of what I'm being shown. I don't express it because I don't want anyone to think I'm better than them, when in essence, the healing comes when I can totally accept myself for who I am, and stop abandoning the parts of me that want to be expressed. Like, if I know it, I should express it, as opposed to holding it back out of fear that somebody's going to make a judgment concerning me. Now I'm dealing with that, but I don't talk about it all the time as I deal with it. So far, does that answer your question, Ron?
Sure.
So I don't deal with it. I don't talk about it, rather, but I deal with it, and I push myself to make the statements that need to be made. Uh, I'm getting to the point where um, it doesn't matter what people think about me when I say things. I was built to be who I am. I was not built to be smaller than I am. I was built to live in my truth. And what I see, what I understand, comes from the case of consciousness. I was brought in this earth to have wisdom and understanding. And that wisdom and understanding has been um, has been minimized, because when I was younger, uh, you think you know everything. Um, you mom's black Jesus. All kinds of things came out of the mouth about that, and I suppress things, and that has been a part of my life, and it's also spilled into relationships where I felt rejection in relationships. So I don't talk about it all the time. The only time I mentioned that I do believe was when we started talking about shadow work. So that's how how you know that you're dealing with it. You know, even now, uh, I don't even think about it in terms of shadow work when we are on. So you've heard me talk about the difference between uh, being called to be a teacher and being called to be a student. Because if you're not a good student, you'll never be a good teacher. And being a teacher is not something that you have been taught it is. We've been taught that a teacher, especially in the church, is someone special above everybody, as opposed to understanding that that is a very heavy burden to carry. And you don't wear it like a badge. You engage in it because of the weight that it carries if you don't do what you are supposed to do to the best of your ability. And being a spiritual teacher is different than being any other kind of teacher, because a spiritual teacher makes you aware of who you are. A Christian, a religious teacher indoctrinates you to believe whatever they tell you without explaining anything to you. And everyone is not a spiritual teacher. And being a teacher of spirituality can become a yoke around your neck at times because of the deep desire to make sure that you're correct in what you say and to deal with the subtle challenges that you face from those. Some of the challenges are not so subtle, to those who are always trying to prove you wrong, or those who are trying to expose something that they think you don't know. And now I'm at this space where I periodically I engage in saying things that I have been shown, as opposed to trying to hide them beneath the surface, because I refuse to allow shadow work. I refuse to allow those things that have plagued me to become a pity party. I refuse to allow those things to hold me back. If that is all if all you're doing is talking about it and blaming everybody for it except yourself, because you don't have to reject, you don't have to accept it. If you blame everyone except yourself, if I were blaming you for rejecting me, when I know rejection is based upon how I receive what is being said or done, if I do that, I would never get to the place of living in the now. I would not be able to experience a heightened vibration. I will I'll always be in the past as opposed to living in the now. And Ron, before I say this, any questions about what I just said? Comments?
I think shrinkage is something. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess I think shrinkage is something that has affected all of us as a people. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
It has. I
I mean,
think that
the way you
shrinkage goes in.
describe it. Yeah. The way you describe it. Yeah. it was I guess also something that was fed through religion or supported through religion.
Yeah.
I,
It is an indoctrination of religion. Yeah. Yet we cannot stay there.
right.
We cannot say, well, we've been rejected all our life. We've never been given a real chance to do blah blah blah. That's why I don't like white people. I can't do white people right now because I saw some on the news that really pissed me off. Uh uh You cannot be a cable line and live with that kind of attitude. You have to deal with that attitude because it is not the white people doing anything to you. It's you not realizing who you are, not really embracing who you are. Ask yourself this question: what can white people do to piss God off? Somebody said a lot. But when you know who you are, you see it not as something to destroy you as much as it is something to be corrected. Spiritual teaching is about becoming aware of who you are and what's already in you. That's what spiritual teaching is about. Yeah, it's difficult to do, but guess what? If it could not be done, then you wouldn't be God. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
There is absolutely no thing that you cannot do. How is it that you can be the progenitor of all humans in this earth and you can't correct your children? You don't correct your children the way you correct children in the physical world. You correct them by correcting you. Look at how much we put in the macro and see the change and experience the changes and have not said pretty much anything to them. The correction comes by virtue of the influx of righteousness, of loving kindness into the atmosphere that we are, or the society that we live in. Because what has been the dominant force? Racism, greed has been the dominant force in this society. Let me give you an example of that, if I may. Donald Trump said that the reason they are in Iran is because they want regime change. They want to be able to choose who the leader of that country is. Are you familiar with that statement? Of course, it's paraphrased, but that's the meat of it.
Yes.
This has been the case for America all the time. In 1953, the U.S. went into Iran, overthrew the government, and chose a leader. But they did not talk about it, and they're still not talking about it today. The only reason they are upset with Donald Trump is because Donald Trump exposed what they're actually doing and been doing ever since this has been our country. Ever since. I mean, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, you name it. They have done the same thing all over the world. And they've done it through violence. The most violent nation on the earth is America. And Donald Trump is simply exposing the reality of what exists in this country. Can you see the parallel there?
Yes.
So we cannot expect that kind of attitude to bring righteousness into the earth And the ones who are the foundation of Christianity are the ones who supporting this the most. Why is it that we have church at 11 o'clock on Sunday? Because white folks have told us to have church at 11 o'clock on Sunday. The control is still there. And until we overthrow that yoke of control in our lives, we will not vibrate as we should to be who we were created to be. Are you able to see that? Ron,
Yes.
not the only one on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I
I see
I
it,
have a
Pastor.
question.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Go ahead.
I had a question real quick. Sir, when you were talking about shrinkage,
Yeah.
how does that tie into that scripture where it says, I must decrease so that he can increase? How has that been twisted, and what's really the truth behind that scripture? Over.
The truth behind that is John saying, when he says that, that can be taken either way. It can be taken as you supposed to shrink because Jesus is all powerful. Or it can be seen as now I see the spiritual nature of who I am. I am a deliverer. So the one who I thought I was must begin to decrease so I can be who I was created to be. Are you able to see the difference in that?
Yes, sir. So are we saying that the ego is decreasing or the ego is not involved at all?
We are saying that the person that we thought we were is decreasing. We are saying that our actions as Christians is decreasing, so the real us can increase.
Which is the Icabillonians.
Yes, must
Okay.
increase. The knowledge
Yes,
of
sir.
self must increase.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions about that? Or comments?
I have a question or a comment maybe on both, but not about shrinkage. Can I go ahead and say it now?
Absolutely.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Pastor, what you're saying about shadow work is that it's twofold. When something is in the shadows and it's directing and governing how we think, speak, act, and who we think we are, and it's keeping us from being who we are, a Kabbalon, is causing us to doubt that we have the ability to be Kabbalon, a Kabbalon, then that shadow work, that first step in shadow work, and I'm using step loosely because there are no steps, I know that. But the first, I'm going to say maybe process of shadow work is identifying this thing that's been under the surface in the shadows. Once I shine light on that, the second part of this whole thing of understanding shadow work is that now there's something I have to do. If this is what's hindering me from being who I am, who I know I'm supposed to be, as the teaching goes forward and I'm beginning to understand who I really am, there has to be some type of release or some type of work that I have to do to keep this thing from hindering me. Because what I'm noticing, because we've talked about shadow work now for, I would say, over a year. And I notice that each time more is revealed to us about who we are and what to walk in, we circle back to doing the shadow work. And what I'm hearing is at some point we have to let those things go. And correct me if I'm wrong. And I don't know what go looks like because everybody's shadow work is different. You describe what it would be for you and what you've dealt with. But as each of us are looking at ourselves individually and what our own shadow work is, what is it that we need to do so that this thing shrinks, if we want to use the word shrinkage here, so that I can increase into being who I really am? I have to start releasing that, giving myself grace and moving forward so that I don't let this keep me in the wilderness, wandering in the wilderness, going around the same mountain because I can't seem to walk in truth. And it made me think about Christianity. Why was it that we believed that lie and we worked wholeheartedly to bring that lie into fruition in this reality of where we are? we witnessed. There are those who witnessed. There are those who thought they were walking in the power of Jesus and covered in the blood and all this charismatic stuff that we were told. We held on to that and didn't question it and tried to walk in it. But now that we hear truth, we struggle with, can I really do this? And that's no different from what went on in the wilderness. So we have to kind of, what I'm hearing you say is once we identify it, we got to work to let it go, because it goes back to what George always says: if the truth is making you uncomfortable, don't blame the truth, blame the lie that made you comfortable. We got to let go of the lie. Look at what's holding us back, or else every time you introduce something new about who we are and we get the understanding, we want to go back to shadow work and say, well, can we really do this? Or am I really? Okay, we move from Elohim now. We understand we are Kavalonic. But can I really be those things? Because that seems to come up with more truth that's being shown to us. So am I correct in seeing shadow work as not just identifying the shadow, but then you're left with, what am I supposed to do with this once I identify it, and work to minimize that so that it does not hold me back? Am I seeing shadow work the right way?
Yes, ma'am. If you identify that you felt unworthy all your life, and identifying it is as you said, the first part of it. Now, you have to talk to yourself and remind yourself that you are worthy. You are enough. No matter what someone says or how they treat you, you are enough. Simply because you were born, that makes you worthy in itself. You cannot believe that you are Kavalon and feel like or think that you're unworthy. Because how in the world can God be unworthy? How can that happen? What we're looking at in that regard is we have embraced the notion that other people have about us, and we have become what they wanted us to be as opposed to becoming who we were created to be. Is that in keeping with what you were talking about, Kathy?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anger. Anger does not have to be destructive. As a matter of fact, anger used the right way can be a very powerful force that set boundaries. Anger shows up when your needs are not met, or when you think they're not met, consciously or subconsciously. Anger shows up when boundaries are crossed. And suppressed anger always becomes depression, illness, resentment, whether it's resentment of what you said or did during the course of that anger, or resentment for someone who you believe made you angry. Healthy anger, healthy frustration protects your integrity, and it clarifies what you will no longer put up with from yourself in particular, or from others. When you honor your anger, when you express it calmly, it becomes constructive. Because what does it do? It repairs bridges, it builds bridges, and it repairs the breach that has been left behind. It becomes clarity in action. And at that point, you reclaim your voice and you reclaim your peace without harming yourself or anyone else. Can you see that? How do you deal with this anger?
Excuse me. Say that one more time, please.
Which one? Which part? That anger does not have to be destructive.
that it harms yourself and
and others around you.
okay.
Everything that you put out there comes from inside of you. So if the anger is in you, it's coming out through depression, through illness. It's just not going to stay there. It's going to harm you one way or the other.
Is not that what a part of what we are expected to do is to balance those polarities, those seeming, not polarity, those seeming polarities.
Yes.
That's the work, and sometimes you need the side to express to show the other. You need up and to show what down is, but our goal is to not put a value judgment on it, but to balance the two, to integrate them within our essence, so that neither it doesn't become pathological. That's the work. That's the balance. That's understanding why we have those two polarities. They're not in and of themselves bad. It's what we do with them and how we use them to inform our essence.
Yes. You're spot on, Barbara. You have to give yourself permission to feel what you feel. In other words, you have to recall a moment that triggered you, that brought the anger out of you. And then you begin to calmly express it, and you remind yourself that you are allowed to feel what you feel. And you ask yourself, what has this been wanting to teach me? What am I to learn from this anger? Why am I angry? And when you begin to pose those questions to yourself, that's when you begin to move from one end to the other and begin to balance, as Barbara stated, the polarity of that anger. But you can't forgive yourself to that anger, for being angry or for carrying that anger if you don't deal with it. You identify it, but you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it.
So you don't necessarily then have to know a search for the root cause. You just deal with it from what you feel from that point, from the now. And that,
If you can get to the root cause, it's better because you can dig it up by the root. The main thing is embracing the reality that you're angry. And then ask what triggered me to this anger. Whether it was now, if you find out what triggered you, then why am I triggered by this all the time? If you cannot get to the root of it, if you cannot remember the day, of course, when it started, it doesn't matter. The matter is something triggers you. If someone, I got one. If we read about or hear about someone being lynched and we get angry about it, that's a trigger. And you ask yourself, what am I to learn from this? Because if we stay angry in a destructive way because someone got lynched or someone was raped, is the difference between having emotional pain in regards to that and being angry, wanting to do something to somebody who did those things. That anger about that is destructive to you because there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it anyway. It's destructive to you. through resentment or through your in illness or depression. It will send you into a state of depression. So as you said, you can begin with it now. If you're angry right now, if you're angry today at any point, stop and ask yourself, what triggered this? Why do I feel the way I feel? And if you could identify that, or you ask yourself, what am I to learn from this? This anger is not here to destroy me, but I'm allowing it to do that. So what is it that I am to learn from this? And once you come to an understanding of what this anger has taught you or is trying to teach you, then you forgive yourself. You forgive yourself for having been angry. And because forgiveness is a gift to you and everybody around you. Because when we expressed anger in a destructive way has an adverse effect on everybody around you. It changes our tonality. And that's something that I've had to work on as well. Being in a rage, especially when it comes to white people, white men in particular. I've had to work with that. So what have I done? I've forgiven myself for all of those things that were detrimental to me as well as to people around me. And since I have learned who I really am, I have forgiven myself for taking so long to move away from those things that would send me into a rage or make me angry. And so now I am able to live in this earth with minimal anger. I'm not saying that I don't get angry, but minimal anger. Instead of responding destructively or in a physical way, I step back from it now. Do I step back all the time? No, I might cuss you. I don't know. It just depends on that moment. However, it is not a prevalent thing with me that happens all the time when I'm taken out of my comfort zone. Does that make sense? Can you see that, Ron?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Reverend Richards, I'm glad you touching on this today because I had to deal with that Thursday night with those ladies in jail. And some of the same stuff that you were saying, I was telling them, what got you to this point? And then they pulled their heart out, and it was just sad. They were just crying, and they couldn't stop crying, and they didn't know. One last week, they was like, they was on a high. They was happy, and they were laughing, and they were engaging in the teaching. And then Thursday night, it was like a different story. It's like they just went backwards instead of going forward. And so I thank you for touching on this morning.
You're welcome. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Forgive. Go ahead. Forgive.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, I was just sitting here thinking, and I was like, we normally try to put, like, far as emotions, I feel like any emotion that you feel is just part of being in this realm. But at the same time, I feel like when it comes to anger, we tend to always associate something negative with it. Oh, he got mad and beat somebody or did this or did that. But there are times when anger can be fuel. You know what I mean? I mean, it's times when I was in the Marines, it was a time where a drill sergeant made me so angry that if he had not have made me angry, I probably would have never got through. I wouldn't have ever became a Marine. Because he kept telling me every day, you're not going to make it. You just ain't built for this. This ain't you. And I got so mad. At first I wanted to do something to him physically. But I was like, that ain't going to prove a point. But I'm going to use this anger to prove him wrong. And I mean, it's times that I'm pretty sure everybody has got angry about something, some situation or circumstance in their life, and they were like, never again. I'm so mad about this, I bet you I won't be here again.
You know what I mean? And so I kind of feel like if what you do with it is what puts the negative connotation towards it, is what you do with it after you feel that way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that being angry because somebody said something you didn't like, or somebody did something that you didn't like, being angry as a result of that is destructive, especially how you respond to that anger. You don't have to respond to that person. Your voice, your tone changes, your expression changes, your energy changes, and that's a negativity as opposed to being well, it is antithetical to how you're supposed to respond. Let me put it that way, as opposed to saying it's a negative, because nothing is really negative. This idea of forgiveness, it protects your peace also. And it protects the peace of others. Because if you're explosive when you're angry, then that has an adverse effect on the people around you as well as on you. And forgiveness actually restores your freedom because you're no longer imprisoned by those angry emotions. And when you forgive yourself, you're able to, and this is in any case, not just anger. When you forgive yourself, you're able to live in the now as opposed to living in the past. And living in the now is extremely important. If indeed we are going to vibrate, have the same rhythm as the universe, the rhythm of the earth. When we have the rhythm of the earth, when we are in sync with that, our breathing changes. We breathe with the earth. Our thoughts changes. Everything about us changes. Even the way we feel changes. Our emotions are totally different. So why is it necessary to talk about this, how we handle this? Because this is preparation for living in the now. Can you see that? And of course, there are other things that people are doing in regards to shadow work. However, each one of them, we cannot deal with each one of them because some of them are overlapping also. Because this one with anger and with rejection are overlapping, for me anyway.
Yeah.
So we can go down the line and we see that they're overlapping. And also ask yourself this: if you feel like people don't like you, ask you, do you like yourself? Why is it that you feel that people don't like you? Why is it that you feel that everybody's judging you? Is it them or you? Are you trying to live by standards that's set by others? Or are you living the life that you were brought into the earth to live? Are your experiences being guided and governed by the energy in this society? Or have you relinquished your free will? You have a free will. You can hold on to what you were molded to be as opposed to who you are if you choose to. The choice is yours. You can die in the wilderness or you can go into the consciousness that you have been promised. And the consciousness that we have been promised is an awareness of who we are. Why did we have to be promised that? Because we have been in an environment that has buried it so deep inside of us And the promise is you are not who you think you are, and you will see who you are if you choose to. And what did we do? We chose to understand more clearly Christianity. And what did we find? We did not stay in the wilderness and say, oh, well, there are no answers out there. There's no understanding out there until we die. No, we went into the land of promise and we got a glimpse of the grapes, how big they were. We got a glimpse of being able to conquer the giants that are plaguing us, that we call things that we have to do shadow work about. We dealt with those things, and when we saw those things, how did we deal with them? As teachers, we dealt with them by meeting. We met so often, and we talked to each other, and we corrected each other when we were looking at things differently than what they should have been. We discussed sometimes one subject for hours in order to get an understanding. And as we got that understanding, we looked up, and guess what? We have moved so far away from Christianity until it was not even funny. So far away until there was nothing to return to. So far away until the journey that we were experiencing felt nothing like Christianity, felt nothing like religion. It gave us the power to live in peace within. It gave us the strength to be able to speak the truth, not to hurt anyone, but to bring clarity, to speak it in a manner that is gentle, a manner that's warm and comforting, so that others would not be repelled by our words, as Christianity repelled others by the words. I'm a word church, or you ain't going to heaven the way you living. and 99 and 9/10% of the folk in church, well, let me put it this way: all of them who ain't too old to do what they want to do is doing what they want to do, and yet you're not going to heaven because of what you're doing. We got beyond that. We understand. We were shown by our ancestors that we are in this earth, and the only way we get to live in heaven is to bring peace to the earth. Because right now we have a choice. We can live in enlightenment. We can live in heaven. At the same time, we are able to bring correction, to bring strength, to bring peace, to bring freedom to the world around us. And that's what it means when it says that we are in this world, but we are not of this world. Can you see that? Questions or comments? And I see that we're not going to get to living in the now today, because that in itself is totally separate from this in terms of understanding, because there's no point in us making an effort to talk about that if you're not in a position to receive it. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does.
So this, what we are talking about with this shadow work, identification, and the work that's put in for you to overcome whatever is holding you back. Because the thing that holds you back is in you. No one else can do that. No one. No one else can keep you from knowing who you are. No one else can keep you from living in the now. No one else can keep you from being in this world but not of it, but you. You are the only one. And people, let me tell you, Armageddon is taking place as we speak. Armageddon is a spiritual war. It's being played out physically. The greatest powers on earth are in battle now. America and Israel have the strongest militaries on earth. And the reason they're the strongest on earth is because they are one military. In two different places, with Israel being in charge, and with Britain and France being behind the scenes supporting what they are doing. This is Armageddon being worked out, being played out in the physical. The question is, are we going to bring peace? What do I mean by that? If we are always doing shadow work, there is no time to bring peace to what's going on that's being played out in the physical. This is racism at its best. This is arrogance at its best. And it's not just America and Israel, Iran also, because the Persians, the Arabs, the Europeans, all of them invaded Africa and took what they wanted. And they got to pay for that. So are we going to spend time, with me, I can't do that. I can't deal with rejection. It's too hard for me to do that. I know I'm not worthy. And the Christianity taught us that. I'm not worthy, but it's Jesus who makes me worthy. No, you were born worthy. So it's incumbent upon us to decide this day. Are we going to embrace who we are? Are we going to embrace who we have been shown that we are on this side of the river? Or are we going to live on the other side of the river pretending that we are on this side? The question is ours. We are in a transitional period. Transformation must take place for us to bring peace to this earth. And guess what? If for 5, would you spare the city? For 2, if it's only 1, yes. So it doesn't mean you're going to be destroyed, but it does mean that you won't be vibrating with the ancestors, with the universe. It does mean that you won't experience what it is to live in the now. So I leave you with this. It's up to you to make the decision whether you're going to lie in a bed of always doing shadow work, a bed of pity, or whether you're going to deal with it and become powerful. That's a question for you to answer. I, along with many, have chosen to be powerful. And I say this without reservation or hesitation, something I would not have said even last year. I am powerful. I know who I am. I understand the reason that I am the covering. And the reason I am the covering is because masculinity put us in hell. This patriarchal system destroyed our self-worth in our own minds. And we as males from Akabelon bought into that system and brought pain to our women, to our females, to our femininity. We did that. We have to heal that pain. And I'm very grateful that the Creator has chosen me from birth to be a part of this. I understand why I grew up in the midst of females, why I grew up watching my uncles be very protective of their sisters, their aunts, their mama. I know who I am. Do you know who you are? And I'm comfortable saying that now. I'm comfortable saying that I embrace this fully. I'm comfortable saying that yes, if no other male ever decides to walk this journey that we are walking, I am the male who will bring the correction, who will actually fight to make sure that femininity stays on the throne that it has always sat upon, with all the grace and all of the beauty that it has always had. I don't have to fight physically to protect femininity. My greatest battles are spiritual. So I'm done.
Thank you. Any thoughts or questions, anyone? Final thoughts or questions?
Hey, Ron, this is Charles. My thought and question is when Red was talking about, I know what he said, but I just can't pull it back up. It took me back to when God told a man, "Who told you was naked?" And we all still at that same place. Who told you was naked? And everybody always telling us as a race who we are, and we never move from that.
Yes, we have been walking around naked. And now that we're clothed in our right minds, now that we walk under the cloak of spirituality, we understand we are not these bodies. We are much larger than these bodies. We are simply these bodies. So those around us are able to identify who God is. And believe you me, all over the internet, there are white women in particular and white men talking about the deity of those black people, as they put it. They're recognizing that. But do you recognize it? No questions, no comments? I'm done.
Okay. Have a good day, guys. And, see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.